Good evening. I'm Siwa Beely Rose Amador LeBeau, and I'd like to welcome you to Native Voice TV. This evening we have some very special guests, good friends of mine, Michael Horace and Pennie Plant, and they have so many titles. Let's see, they're business people, actors, activists. You guys do it all, artists.
Yeah.
You guys stay very busy, but welcome to the show. And you know, a lot of times I go places and people say, oh, look at your jewelry, it's so pretty, where can I get some, where can I get your earrings, where can I get this and that? And I always say, go to powwows, and they say, I don't know where there's a powwow, but you guys have a store, and it's called Gathering Tribes.
That's right.
Tell us about the store.
So I opened it in 1991, and it's on Solano Avenue in Albany, which is right next to Berkeley, right on the corner of Santa Fe and Solano. And we feature arts, crafts, and jewelry by Indigenous artists from Alaska to Chile. So it's all Native America to
And
us.
you have some beautiful things in there.
Thank you. We feature Michael's work, his ledger paintings and jewelry, and we have lots of award-winning artists that come and do weekend events throughout the year.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah,
So what kind of artwork do you do?
Well, I'm basically a jeweler. You know, my family's part Zuni, so I've been doing jewelry since I've been a little guy. But I also do what's called ledger art. It's a type of traditional native folk art. We used to paint on hides. That was our history book, our calendar. We could roll it up, take it with us. And then reservation period, late 1800s, early 1900s, we started painting on pieces of found paper, mostly out of ledger books that took records of goods and commodities that were brought to the reservation itself, or forts or settlements, but any old maps, love letters, Bibles in the native language, and I painted all the original documents for the time period. I've been doing this for, you know, over 35 years. So.
I think I've seen some of your work. It's beautiful. You do really good work.
Oh, thanks.
And
Yeah.
I've seen some of the work you've done for posters and so forth in the community.
I do a lot of stuff for the community, for the powwows and for fundraisers and for activist events.
Mm-hmm. Did you do one for the Gathering of Nations?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
I thought you did.
I did the poster and jackets a couple of years for Gathering of Nations. Yeah.
Oh, wow, congratulations. And you have a lot of guest artists come in.
Yeah.
You have shows and so forth?
We do. Our next show will be on the second Saturday of April, and we have a new artist who's just amazingly successful. Gathering Tribes is the first place she's ever shown at, and we've sold 24 of her paintings since last August. Her name is Alta Moore. She's Western Shoshone. She lives in Oakland, and she does these beautiful images of trees and water and wind and animals on either Bristol paper or on canvas, oil on canvas. And so she'll be there at Gathering Tribes from 3 to 5 the second Saturday of April. And then later on in April we have Ted Garcia, who's a Chumash sculptor, and he'll be there. He's really a sweet guy. But people can find out about our shows by going to gatheringtribes.com and just clicking on the events page.
Now, besides jewelry and paintings, what do you have there? What can people find?
We have pottery, we have Katsina dolls, Hopi Katsina dolls, probably the largest selection of Zuni fetish carvings in the Bay Area, lots and lots of jewelry, the Zapotec wooden animals from Oaxaca, as well as the textiles from Oaxaca. And the things change because we're meeting different people all the time, and so we get different things in from different parts of the country. We have
CDs.
we have music, we have books, a lot of books.
Flutes.
Flutes and drums. And right now we also have a small but really amazing selection of Inupiat art from Alaska. And Sam Dimmick just brought in some gorgeous sculpture pieces that are orcas and salmon, and the polar bear already sold, and we've only had it in for a couple of days.
Oh my.
So hopefully we'll be getting some more from him of the polar bears.
Well, that's it's close by San Jose. It's a great place for people to go.
It's a chance when we bring the artists so people can come and have a discussion about the meaning of the pieces, the materials, and the process that's used, you know, so it's very interesting for people to actually come meet the artists themselves.
Wonderful.
And we also have Huichol art. And our Huichol brother, who we adopted him into our family, his name is Luciano Valdez, and he comes every year on the first weekend of May and the first weekend of December. And like many of our artists, the entire proceeds of what they make go to them that weekend. And so it's our way of supporting the artists, of introducing our customer community to Native artists that they wouldn't normally meet.
What I really like about your store is that you have indigenous art from the Americas, not just from the United States.
Right.
It's not limited.
We don't recognize those borders.
No.
That
You know,
is
those-
excellent.
yeah.
I like that. I like that.
We do
about
too.
you. Yes. So go out to that store. I mean, you really should check it out. And you find some beautiful pieces out there, because people always say, where can I find this? Where can I find, native jewelry? Where can I find paintings? This is the place to go. So that's wonderful. Now, before we get into what you've both been into as far as your activist work, you're an actor.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a long time. I started as a wrangler and a stuntman. I wasn't a very good rodeo rider, and the first time somebody actually paid me to fall off my horse, I went, I can do that really well. Yeah, I've been in the wrong end of this business, but I've done everything from the bad remake of The Lone Ranger in 1980 to Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks, and a wonderful series in Canada for the Canadian television called North of 60, a primetime native drama. It was on for 7 years. I did, I did 2.5 years of it, and it was just, some of it was written by Indigenous writers, directed by Indigenous writers, and all these wonderful Canadian native actors, Tantu Cardinal and Adam Beach and Graham Greene, and all these people came out of that series. I was one of only 2 native people from the States to ever be on that series, and it was wonderful. Yeah.
Wow.
So I spent, we're going to talk about the tar sands in Idle No More, and I spent a lot of time in northern Alberta.
Oh, wonderful. And we've been hearing a lot about Idle No More. Here in San Jose, there was a Idle No More gathering at the Mexica ceremony just recently. And we had one at Valley Fair Mall. I was at that one, and I was at the one, the Kapoli Tonoleke dancers had one on King and Story in San Jose. So there's been several different gatherings or flash mobs, as whatever you want to call them. But, what's it all about? Why don't we go back, and where did that start?
So it started with 4 women, 3 First Nations women and 1 woman of European ancestry up in Canada. And I don't have the exact story, but I like to imagine them sitting around a kitchen table saying, well, the Harper government, the Prime Minister in Canada, is trying to violate our treaties and trying to get access to all of our waters. And so, what should we do about it? And they decided to start a revolution using Facebook and Twitter, similar to what happened in the Middle East and in Northern Africa a couple of years ago, and with Occupy. And so they decided to call it Idle No More. And of course, we know a lot of us have always been idle no more. But I think it's an appropriate title for this movement that started. And they actually did that towards the end of October. So it took a while for it to gain momentum. And by December, the Bill C-45 was just weeks away from being passed, and the end of November, December, and they started with flash mob brown dances all through Canada. So when you think about the time period, imagine being in a big shopping mall up in Canada and doing your Christmas shopping, and all of a sudden hundreds or thousands of First Nations people come into the mall and start singing and dancing and having their signs about the bills that are coming down and about First Nations rights and the tar sands, and making sure that the environment remains sustainable or becomes even more so. And so that's how it got started. And also on December 10th, Chief Teresa Spence from the Ottawaspicut Nation in Ottawa, probably not pronouncing that accurately, she went on a spiritual hunger fast that lasted, I think it was close to 40 days. And her health was very much impaired, and she received lots of messages to not, fast until death. That what she had done was powerful and it helped move a lot of people, but we really needed her alive. And spiritual leaders went to see her from all over North America, including Chief Kayleen Sisk from the Wintu Nation up at Mount Shasta. And so it's really been a female-led movement. If you look at a lot of the photos online, you can see that at the beginning of these big marches, they're led by women. And it's very, very beautiful. So just to get back to the bill, on December 4th, there were over 2 million federally protected bodies of water in Canada. After C45 passed, it was reduced to under 200. So from 2 million to under 200. And of course, the reason that the federal government wants to have access to all this fresh water is because it takes literally billions of gallons every year to mine the tar sands and to mine the uranium and to mine the gold and all the other mining of our, natural treasures in Mother Earth, to get them out as a commodity. And I'm training myself to not use the word resources, because when we use that word resource, referring to something that's a commodity that can be bought and sold, and I've been asking a lot of people, what should that word be? And one of my customers at Gathering Tribes came up with natural treasures. And that's the closest word that I've been able to get for that. So I Don't Know More kicked off an international solidarity movement that it's wonderful when you see the images on Facebook, because they're from Sweden and China and Australia and New Zealand and Hawaii and all over the United States and down into Central and South America. And the campesino movement in the highlands of Guatemala sent a letter of solidarity to the I Don't Know More founding mothers that was just so beautiful. It ended with, and we send you hugs. So there's a lot of love in this movement, and it really is, it's a female-led movement, and it's important because it's for our children and our grandchildren and those not yet born. And
what was the response from the citizens in Canada, the non-native people?
It's been very mixed. There are groups of people that call themselves allies or settlers, and it's, from what I've been able to glean from reading, is that those groups of people are the same as the native people in their understanding of how everything's connected and ensuring the future for the coming generations. And of course, it's also fleshed out all the racists. Just like what happened here when Obama was elected, it fleshed out the racists. And my personal opinion about that is, bring it on. It's kind of like a pimple on the face of the culture that we need it to rise up so that it can be healed. And so let's see it all, bring it all to the table. Let's see the worst that you have to bring to us, and then let's deal with that.
Right. It has been very effective since it has reached because of the internet, has reached so many parts of all the countries.
Well, you see the pictures of that is the oldest arboreal forest in the world. It's such beautiful.
This is in Albany?
This is in Alberta.
Alberta,
yeah.
Alberta.
And it's just devastating what they're doing, and the traditional people, there's pictures popping up, the fish have big tumors on them, and there's cancer in the meat and the geese, and the people are sick. When we were at the first big rally in Washington, D.C., the tribal leaders and spiritual people were there, and they weren't even mad, they were hurt, So it's amazing to me that the rest of the world, it's not just the native population, starting to understand no more of doing this to Mother Earth. If you've got children, if you've got grandchildren, what are you going to leave them?
The water runs everywhere.
And also how lazy everybody is, that this is the only way you have out of your energy solution is the dirtiest fossil fuel that you can find, This is a country that did amazing, technological advances. It's put your brain together and figure out how to do this in a cleaner way.
And who went to DC? You went to Pennie.
We both went the first time.
Tell us about that.
Well, I heard about it, and I've been an activist since the early 80s and just kind of ongoing. And I heard about it, and I said, Michael, we really have to go to this. I'm feeling like this is very, very important, and we need to go. And so it was the first one was the Indigenous Day of Solidarity around the tar sands and stopping the Keystone XL pipeline. And that's the one where there were the chiefs from Canada were there, Naomi Klein was there, Deborah White Plume from the Lakota Nation, and Tantu was there. A lot of actors whose names I don't know were there, because even though I'm married to one, that's not my
You know his name, though.
Yeah, I know his name. Most of the time I know his name. And it was amazing. It was thousands of people, and I think that day 70-something people did civil disobedience, and I would have done civil disobedience that day in front of the White House, except we had to catch a flight home that night. I didn't know that was going to go on. And then I went again in November of the same year, 2011, when we surrounded the White House, and there were thousands and thousands of people there, and a very large Indigenous presence. A lot of Lakota people, people from Canada again. And at the thickest part of surrounding the White House, it was about 8 to 10 deep. And then at the thinnest part, it was 2 deep around the White House. So that's, they have the White House all enclosed now in a huge fence. So there was a lot of people that were there. And then jumping forward to just recently in February, Bill McKibben is the founder of 350.org, which is an amazingly active and important environmental group. And the name comes from, we need to reduce the particulates in our air down to 350. They're at 390 right now, and the ball is already rolling on climate change, as we see with all of the big storms, and if the tar sands oil are able to get out into the open market in the way they want, it's going to increase those particles per million to over 400, which will mean that our great-grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be living in an environment that is unsustainable. And so Bill McKibben, he's the one that kicked the ball off for the DC rallies and for the big rally on February 17th, that there were actually lots of rallies across the country, but in Washington, DC, there were over 40,000 people. So it went from about 10 to 12,000 people in November of 2011 to over 40,000 people just this last month. And here in San Francisco, there were over, I say between 5,000 and 7,000 people at the climate rally on February 17th in San Francisco. And we were working with friends of mine in the Idle No More community. We were able to make sure that Idle No More was part of that event. The organizers, which included all of the major environmental organizations, when I asked them if we could be a part of it, and this is what we wanted a round dance, we wanted an Ohlone person to do the opening prayer, and we wanted a speaker. They gave us half the program. And I can't tell you how fulfilling that was, because I'm more used to non-Indigenous organizations saying, well, we're going to do this event and we'd like somebody to do a prayer. Like after the whole thing is organized,
right.
the last
Afterthought.
thing they think about is us. So it was quite wonderful, and we did have a round dance with hundreds, it might have even been thousands of people. Michael did that part of it, and there were probably about 20 of us on stage doing the song, and Karina Gold did the opening prayer, and her nephew Luta did a Ohlone prayer song, and it was really very
Where was this
wonderful. It was in San Francisco. The rally was at Justin Herman Plaza, and the first part of the event was surrounding the State Department building, which basically takes one whole city block in San Francisco. And there were so many people that it spilled over into the streets, and so the rally had to start earlier. It was amazing. It tells me that people are waking up, that people are concerned that the majority of people in the United States, I hate to use that word Americans, because we're Americans from the top to the bottom.
That's right.
So the majority of citizens in the United States know there's a problem. They understand that it's time to come together to pressure the federal government into resolving the issue as quickly as possible to slow the rolling ball down, because we can't stop it.
Right,
We can only mitigate some of the problems that are coming up.
And it's so important because I don't think people realize it affects everybody,
Yeah.
everybody's children.
People don't understand how water intensive it is to process coal, to frack for natural gas, you know, for tar sands. It really takes a lot of water, which they can never reclaim. They're never going to be able to use, and it's going to pollute the water system.
And it already is.
Yeah, and also this oil, people say, well, we need to, you know, it's not going to be our oil. It's going to go right down to the Gulf, go to the refineries if they build the pipeline, and go on the open market.
And it will only, as Obama just said last week on a press conference, that it will only create 35 to 50 permanent jobs. And the oil industry keeps talking about the thousands of jobs it's going to create, but those aren't permanent jobs. They're just jobs to build the pipeline. So the pipeline is the southern portion of it has already started. It started to be built last year from Norman, Oklahoma down to Houston. And as we speak, there are people who are chaining themselves to the construction equipment. The other part of this that's a first in the United States is that the federal government has given a corporation that's chartered outside of the United States and Canada permission to use eminent domain to build a pipeline. And so we have a Canadian corporation being allowed to steal private property from U.S. citizens to build a pipeline that does absolutely nothing for the community that it's being built in, where all the profits are still going to the oil companies in Canada. And it's destroying people's farms and their ranches, because all pipelines have spills.
Yeah, it's already leaked. The parts that they've already built have been leaked.
Tell me about affinity groups and how people hearing this for the first time, you know, say, I got to do something. How can I help? What can I do?
So right now, the most important thing all of us can do, and I'm encouraging you all to do it on a daily basis, is to call, write letters, and send faxes to the President's office, President Obama, to John Kerry at the State Department, and check and make sure that your elected officials, like your senators and congresspeople, if they are for or against the pipeline. And if they're against it, write them a thank you note.
Right.
You know, it's so grateful to all of those who are standing up. But there's also a senatorial committee that's been formed to try to take the decision for the pipeline, the Keystone XL, out of Obama's hands. So this is a dastardly, dirty, under the table kind of thing
Any way you look
they're
at
trying
it.
to do. And
terrible.
so it's important to find out if your senator, elected representative, is for or against it, and do it every day. You know, it's important that we do certain things every day. Just make it a part of your day. Like, okay, it's 6 o'clock. It's time to email or fax or call whoever of those three groups of people. And that's the only way that it can be stopped at this point. And otherwise, we'll be going to, if they approve it, we'll be going to South Dakota and Nebraska, and I'll be one of those people chaining myself to the construction equipment. So an affinity group is a group of people who get together and go through nonviolent direct action training, which teaches people how to intentionally be arrested without committing any acts of violence, because that's very, very important. Our power is not in guns. It's not in beating anyone up. It's not in committing any kind of violence. The only power we really have as activists is nonviolence. Because if there are enough of us sitting in front of those trucks, if we could have 5,000 people sitting in front of the construction, getting arrested, it's going to really slow that pipeline down, and maybe the decision can be reversed. And so in an affinity group, there are people who choose to do civil disobedience, and there are the people who choose to support them in that. So support would mean calling their jobs if necessary, to tell them that they're not going to be coming to work for a period of time, taking care of their children, watering their plants, you know, just being there. Usually when people do civil disobedience, they're in and out in the same day. However, some of the people that have been arrested along the southern building of the pipeline in Texas, they've been kept with larger bails, like $5,000 bails. And so the affinity group would also raise funds for those larger bails. So they're picking out people that are very well-known activists and charging them with greater holding them for longer periods of time and making their bails a little bit higher. But what is that in comparison to being able to drink clean water?
That's right.
And have enough water. And I'm getting older. I have to have my hot shower in the morning.
We need that water to live. Yeah, it's important to everybody. So they can go to your website, Gathering Tribes.
Facebook.
On Facebook.
Yeah, all of this
Facebook,
information
all
is
this
posted
information
on
is
Facebook.
there, and advice on, and different activities that are coming up in the future. You post them on Facebook as well. And also Native Voice TV, we post a lot of the same information when there's going to be a gathering, a flash mob, whatever. We'll post that, so you can go support it if you're local, or if you want to travel over there and support people. It's really important because it's important to all of us. So I look forward to having you back again. We need to talk. I'd like to see some of the things you have at your store. I'd like to see some of your work, Michael, if you could talk about you know, your artwork and your jewelry making. We'll have you back to talk about that. I know we don't have much time on this show, but we'll have you back to catch up on what you're doing. And it seems like there's never a dull moment.
Never.
So, but very important work, and I thank you for all your hard work in the community.
We thank you, too, for the information you get to the community.
Thank you, Rose.
You're welcome. Thank you for watching the show. Like us on Facebook, and we'll see you next week. Good night.